Make sure I got this share on.
It is. Stand by. We have winter weather advisories covering parts of the Hudson Valley and the Catskills, northern Connecticut and Massachusetts, western New Jersey, Pennsylvania, down into northern Virginia and central and western Maryland, and even some winter storm warnings tonight in the West Virginia mountains. We also have a lunar eclipse, which means we need to keep the skies clear for a while. And Joe Rayo is going to tell you all about the lunar eclipse. We'll get into the weather and much more on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Shop Amazon via our referral link, which tonight is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the description of this podcast. If you use the link to get you to Amazon, get whatever it is you're going to get. Amazon throws us some coin for sending you there. And it helps because with that, we can keep the live Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast commercial free. And so far, we've been successful, so we want to keep it that way. So please, by all means, do your Amazon shopping on our referral link and buy a weather station from Tempest by WeatherFlow, the revolutionary Tempest weather system. You'll be part of the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link for this is on the description to this podcast on YouTube, and the coupon code Joe Rayo.
The new coupon code, Joe Cioffi, is spring 2026. And meteorological spring is now 2 days old. And even though it is meteorological spring, we're going to talk about some wintry precipitation for our area tomorrow for at least a little bit of the time. And that will get underway in a very short interval of time.
And that coupon code, by the way, gets you 10% off.
10%
The
off anything that you
10%.
purchase, anything you purchase at Tempest. You can't use the 10% if you go to the supermarket. They won't
Right.
have any idea what you're talking about. Imagine going up to the cashier. Imagine buying a whole bunch of stuff at the supermarket. You roll the card up to the cashier, and then you tell the cashier, "Oh, by the way, spring 2026." The guy will look at you like, "Huh?"
Right. So, just real quick, what time is the eclipse?
It'll start just before 5 in the a.m. tomorrow here in the east.
All right, hang on a second. I have to raise my mic. Apparently, it's not optimal, as I'm being told. So just give me a moment here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Headsets. Well, I got it on maximum, so it's about as high as it gets, folks. Let me just double check and make sure that.
Well, you're coming through. You're coming through fine for me, at least.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Well, someone just said I don't sound good. Anyhow, no. I'm sorry. I got confused as I saw that. What time was the peak again?
Just before 5 in the morning is when it will get underway, and it will reach total.
So by the usual rules regarding astronomical events that occur within 120 miles of Joe Rayo, it should cloud over. And I'm looking at the satellite right now, and it's actually cleared out across northern New Jersey, northern Pennsylvania, upstate New York, Long Island, and so on, which is going to have some ramifications on the weather tomorrow morning. But before we do that, Joe's going to be doing it's all eclipse, folks, all eclipse.
Okay, so let me first of all go to let me bring this up first. What I'm going to be sharing with the general public here, and go to the share screen and go here and hit the share button, and then go to slideshow and current slide, and away we go. So yes, as Joe mentioned, we're going to have a total eclipse of the moon tomorrow morning. Hope all of you are aware that when you look at the moon up in the sky, that it is not shining on its own. It is shining by virtue of reflected sunlight. It is sunlight that allows us to see the moon, so that if we were to somehow block that sunlight from reaching the moon would go dark. Right here is a typical diagram showing you what happens during a lunar eclipse. Here's the sun, here's the earth. The earth is throwing a long, dark, conical shadow out into space miles. And at the quarter of a million mile point, and that's where the moon is, about a quarter of a million miles from the earth, the shadow's width is about 5,000 miles wide. The moon is only about 2,100 miles wide, so that's why it is fairly easy to get the entire moon immersed in the shadow of the earth. There's plenty of room. But if you look at this diagram, you say to yourself, okay, well, if the moon moves into the shadow of the earth, no sunlight is reaching the moon, so it should black out completely, but it doesn't. Instead, what happens during the total phase of the eclipse is that the moon lights up like a red ball. And you say to yourself, well, how is that possible? Why are we seeing it light up like that? And the reason is our atmosphere. The atmosphere that we live on, or the earth that we live on, surrounded by an atmosphere. And of course, sunlight is of varying wavelengths. The white light of the sun, if you were to use a prism, you would find that you could break that sunlight into varying colors, the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And in our sky, we note that when the sun is high in the sky, it is emitting shorter wavelengths of light. Those short wavelengths translate to a bluish color, but when the sun is down near the horizon, when it's coming up in the morning or going down in the evening, that's the longer wavelengths of light, which trend toward yellow, oranges, and red. And in fact, right along the edge of the horizon there, that's where you get those red colors. So now let's make believe that we are standing on the moon. Right now, it's sunlight, so it looks normal, but around 5 or 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, the Earth is going to pass between the sun and the Earth as seen from the moon. If the Earth did not have an atmosphere, yeah, the moon would black out completely. But because we do have that atmosphere, right along the immediate edge or rim of the dark Earth, you see that red coloration, and that is the combined light of all of the sunrises and sunsets that are occurring at that particular moment in time. And the sun is backlit. The sun is behind the earth, and yet the sunlight is being refracted or bent. The atmosphere is acting like a lens. It's bending that light into the dark shadow of the earth. And because that light, because of the longer wavelengths, are more penetrating than the short wavelengths of blue, that red color ends up being filtered around the edge of the earth and ends up becoming the only light source for the moon during the total eclipse. And that's why, as you see here, the lunar landscape changes to a ruddy or reddish coloration because of that red rim of atmosphere around the dark circle of the earth. And that's why when we look into the sky, we see the moon during totality change into that reddish coloration. And here's the timetable. 4:35 a.m., the moon will be deep inside the outer shadow of the earth. That's the penumbral shadow. You might see a little bit of smudginess on the left-hand side of the moon's disk at that time. The moon will start moving into the dark central shadow at about 4:50 a.m. 5:26, about half the moon will be in the shadow, and then at 6:04, the moon will be totally or completely within the shadow, and that's when we will see a total eclipse of the moon, which will last about 59 minutes. The point of greatest eclipse or deepest eclipse will be at 6:34. But for us here in the east, we won't see that because sometime around 6:30, the moon is going to set beyond the western horizon. This is an interesting picture. I took this picture or series of pictures back in 1982 from Ferry Point Park, Joe, in the Bronx. And I used a camera, a Nickermat camera. You remember what a camera is. Everybody uses uh, their phones now to take pictures. But back then, I had a 35 millimeter camera mounted on a tripod, which was aimed up toward the moon. And every 5 minutes, I would open the shutter and allow for an image of the moon to fall on the film. You remember film. High speed ectochrome was the name of the film. And so, over the passage of time, from about 5 o'clock in the morning, going all the way down to about 6:30, every 5 minutes, the moon, I would expose the film, and the moon would be a little bit more inside of the shadow of the Earth. And again, just as the eclipse was hitting total, right about time that we're going to see tomorrow, around 6:30 in the morning, the moon was about to set beyond the horizon, and there you see, of course, the skyline of New York. Here's the Empire State Building, Chrysler Building, Metropolitan Life Building. By the way, the skyline doesn't look anything like this today. I don't know how many of you look at the skyline today. In some cases, you can't even find the Empire State Building. You got all of these buildings that look like square smokestacks that have sprung up all over Manhattan Island. And whereas it was a fairly pretty and beautiful and symmetrical site back in the early 80s, again, the Empire State, the Chrysler, the Metropolitan Light Building, a few other buildings around. Now it's just a jumble of buildings out there. Anyway, you get the idea. As the moon drops down the western sky tomorrow, it'll become more and more immersed in the shadow, and eventually, just before the moon sets, it'll go into total eclipse. And it's very much like what you would see tomorrow if the skies are clear. Here is a time lapse of what the eclipse is going to look like. And again, we're only going to see the first half of the eclipse because moonset will intervene. If you are somehow watching this from places in the central or especially the western United States, the moon will still be above the horizon all through totality, and out west you'll be able to see the whole thing. But here's what it's going to look like at the start: the penumbral shadow moving in first, and then you see here is the dark umbral shadow, and as we reach totality, the moon turns that beautiful reddish color, the so-called blood moon, as the news media refers to it as. Then, after 59 minutes, the moon moves out of the shadow. The shadow creeps off of the disk of the moon. And again, you won't be able to see this part because from here and the eastern seaboard, the moon will be pretty well out of sight because it will have already set. Oh, and one other thing, uh, don't worry about blinding yourself. With a solar eclipse, the safety glasses are needed because, of course, the sun is blindingly bright and dangerous to look at. But with a lunar eclipse, you needn't be concerned. You look at it and step outside with your bare eyes, and you will be able to see the eclipse uh, from start to whenever it finishes. Unfortunately, Mr. Cioffi, as you are aware, and as I'm well aware,
It's got a cloud
the
over.
we're going to have clouds. However, I looked at the GFS and other models. There's a weather site. I don't know how many of you are aware of it. It's called Spot Weather, spotweather.com. And what spotweather.com does, which is what some of the other websites do not do, is it actually breaks everything down for you. And Joe, it's according to Spot Weather, at 5 o'clock in the morning when the eclipse is getting underway, at least from where I am here in Putnam County, according to Spot Weather, 80 to 85% cloud cover. But the cloud cover is going to be presumably high clouds, and 30 to 35% low cloud cover. So, assuming that's right, then perhaps we might still be able to see the eclipse through high clouds. There might even be a halo around the moon around that time. And if not too many of those low clouds get in the way, at least we'll have a shot at being able to see at least a part of tomorrow morning's eclipse of New York before the full schmutz layer moves in, probably right around daybreak, and sets the stage for, again, kind of a unsettled and possibly wintry weather day around the tri-state area tomorrow.
All right. One of these times, broken clocks are like twice a day, right twice a day. So one of these times, we're going to have one of these things happen where uh, the weather is going to be the way it needs to be. I mean,
Well,
it's
y-
always,
y-
it's always cloudy for the meteor showers in August, the Perseid. So it's always cloudy for that. And then you have the other various ones throughout the year where you just sort of roll the dice.
Yeah. Well, one day the guy upstairs will cut us a break, but at least in this particular, and it's a pity because if the eclipse were only occurring 12 hours earlier, right now, if you step outside right now here in the New York area, you couldn't have asked for a better sky. It's beautifully clear. I saw the moon in the east coming up while I was walking my dog. It's a beautiful night. It's just that it's going to start going downhill quickly after 1 o'clock in the morning as the layer of high clouds move in, and eventually toward daybreak, the low cloud cover moves in with, again, some accompanying precipitation along about 7, 8, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yeah, in the meantime, for the next few hours anyway, temperatures are going to, the areas where it's clear and not much wind, it's going to radiate a bit. So that might set it up to be a little bit colder tomorrow morning when precip arrives, which is probably why they got these winter weather advisories that are up. Before we get to that, I just want to welcome everybody tonight to the chat board, and welcome to those of you watching in the background on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We're here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. and the occasional Friday and Saturday when we have storms around, like the big blizzard. We were doing multiple live shows a day during that. So subscribe to my YouTube channel, turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. Of course, if you like the show, hit the like button because we love it when we get to 100 likes. I'm just a little mystified as to why. All right, I kind of get why the coastal counties of New Jersey are not in a winter weather advisory. Okay. I'm just a little surprised that they've got nothing up for Westchester or Putnam County or even for southern Connecticut. Would you like to opine? I mean, I know why they don't do it for Dutchess Northward in these sorts of situations, especially in the springtime where you start playing games with elevation and valleys versus mountains and that kind of thing. But I'm just kind of curious as to why, unless they decided, why don't we just wait till tomorrow morning because it's not going to be that much precip.
Yeah, and it's causing a problem. My kids are teachers, and my son called up a little while ago to inquire as to what exactly I thought was going to happen. I said, well, I thought that we'd get some light snow or snow mixed with sleet or ice between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. That will be the time of the arrival of the precipitation. But I also said sometime between 1 and 4 o'clock, I think the precip is going to change over to just plain rain. But that makes things problematic for the schools because do they have a delayed opening, or do they call everything off completely, or do they have the kids come to school and then have an early dismissal? This is again kind of problematic. I also commented over the weekend, Tim. I said, well, if the Weather Service puts up any kind of a winter weather advisory, that certainly will uh, make the those who are in charge make a decision, a bit more easier. But the fact that they don't have, as you mentioned, for let's say Westchester County and Putnam County, there's no advisory, at least not just yet. I guess
Right.
maybe they are waiting. Maybe they are waiting and seeing what's going to happen, and maybe they'll wait until tomorrow morning when the precip is literally knocking at the door before they do put up some kind of an advisory or warning for possible wintry precipitation.
Yeah, the Mount Holly took care of their counties, Boston took care of their counties, and Albany took care of their counties, but apparently Upton didn't do. I mean, I'm sure they have a good reason why they didn't put it up.
I should point out my son teaches at a school at in Orange County, near Highland Falls, not too far away from West Point. And I do notice that on your map that the Orange County is under a winter weather
Yes,
advisory.
went
So what
Orange County and up through the Catskills.
So the winter weather advisory, if you're in Orange County, is calling for mixed precipitation, total snow accumulations of up to an inch, and a light glaze to a few hundredths of an inch of ice. So maybe that could mean, and that starts now. The advisory goes into effect at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. What does that mean? That means that my son probably will be heading for school, and that having been said, he may have an early dismissal. At least that's what I expect uh, to happen. But we'll have to play it by ear.
They are getting some snow down in Maryland and Northern Virginia. I was looking at some of the observations. Light snow at Baltimore, Washington, Dulles, and Washington National. In fact, I saw a live shot on CNBC at around 5:15 this afternoon. Looked like they had maybe a solid coating to a half inch of fresh new snow. Oakland, Maryland. I don't know exactly where Oakland, Maryland is, but they've
It's right
got
across the
heavy,
it's right across the river from San Francisco, Maryland.
huge. But they're reporting heavy snow. I got to figure out exactly where they are located. Let me see if I can figure this out. The the ob is I'm trying to find the observations here. Oh, they're in the mount they're in Western Maryland. Hot
Well, like
Springs,
Garrett County.
yeah, Hot Springs, Oakland have all. I'm sorry, Oakland has hot heavy snow with a temperature of 23. Hot Springs has mixed precipitation, a quarter mile visibility. So I'm guessing that's snow and sleet. And we've got mixed at Elkins. We have snowing right now, lightly, as I said, in Baltimore, in Annapolis, Martin Airport, Frederick, Fort Meade is cloudy. Frederick has got light snow. So this is part of that lead system that is moving through the mid-Atlantic states, and it's just going to kind of weaken and sit there tonight. And then as the warm front sets up to the south, you're going to get into the a larger area of precip will start to blossom out, although it doesn't look particularly heavy. And you'll notice that the rest of the country really is pretty quiet. Here's a surface map tonight. We've got the cold high, one center up in over Watertown, another one just south of Montauk. Temperatures, at least at 4 o'clock this afternoon, were generally in the low 30s. This was a very cold day in the Northeast and down into the northern Mid-Atlantic states. You had near or below freezing temperatures all the way down into northern Virginia. And now, of course, if you look further south, you can see where the stall frontal boundary is, running through South Carolina and back through Tennessee. And as we get a little low that forms on that, we're going to have a warm front that's going to try and push northward, although I don't think it's going to be able to make it through before it's all said and done. But enough warm air is going to get in here to eventually change whatever precip is around tomorrow morning and change it over to rain. As I said, it's clear. Northern half of Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, and points northward up into New England, it's clear. The white that you see there is still snow cover, and you see the energy that's coming from the central plains to the mid-Atlantic states. It's also clear. I'm actually been mostly overcast today. You can see where the cloud line was basically about maybe 20 miles south of me all day long. But we were sitting in clouds here all day. In fact, right now it's 52 here in North Georgia, but it's much warmer. Was much warmer today in central and south Georgia, and of course down into Florida. And all the specific energy that's coming in, one wave after another. That's all. That's what we're going to be playing with. And here's the radar tonight, where we have that weakening area of precip in eastern Virginia and in southern Maryland. It's the stations are reporting snow up in around Baltimore. The radar is not really picking up. It's not showing anything. I wonder if there's just missing data here. Also, we have some snow in parts of West Virginia and raining further south into North Carolina and also into Tennessee, and actually a couple of light showers just north of me. Precip wise, the next 7 days, looking at about 3/4 of an inch to an inch or so in the Northeast, less in Maine, only a quarter of an inch there in northern the 2/3 of Maine going north, an inch and a half plus from the Catskills to central New York, and then you've got some bigger rain amounts from West Virginia, lower Ohio, southern Indiana and Illinois, back down through Missouri, Oklahoma, and into Texas, and an area, by the way, of 5 inches plus being indicated from northeast Texas into eastern Oklahoma. Otherwise, we've got some precip going on in the Rockies, nothing too exciting there. Half to three-quarter inch amounts, a couple of patches of an inch and a half, and also up in the Pacific Northwest. I just want to check SPC because we've got. Oh, look at this! Oh, Joe, lit up like a Christmas tree. Okay, so Wednesday into Thursday, which is their day three, has a slight risk. Northeast Texas to Oklahoma and Arkansas. Marginal risk goes all the way up into southern Indiana and southwest Ohio. Then on the long range, day four, I'm going to take these one at a time. Day four in West Texas and western Oklahoma, 15%. Day five, north central Texas, northeast through Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri, and southern Iowa. And day six, an area of 15% in north central and northeast Texas, and a small portion of southeast Oklahoma and southwestern Arkansas. So the severe weather activity, which is supposed to pick up this time of year, is going to pick
Ramping
up
up.
this time of year. Yes, but it doesn't look like we're going to get warm sectored anytime soon here in the Northeast.
You know, I saw one forecaster locally hinting that this weekend we might get to 70. And I'm saying to myself, are you sure you think the warm front is going to be able to make it that far north? At this point, I'm willing to accept temperatures in the 50s for several days. I didn't even know what 60 or plus, 60-degree plus temperatures feel like. In fact, as we mentioned last night, and this was brought up by Bill Goodman, this was one of those winters where we didn't hit 60 degrees once during meteorological winter from December 1st through February 28th. I mean, usually there are a few times when we get into a warm spell and we get up to like 60 or even 65. Didn't even come close to doing that this particular year. It was three consecutive below normal months and three consecutive above normal months in terms of snowfall. So I'd love to see temperatures near 70. I don't know if we're ever going to get there, at least in the coming days ahead.
So by the way, here's the ice forecast. Generally a few hundredths, although there are some pockets like in the Catskills, also in western parts of Massachusetts and northwest Connecticut, where we're looking at up to 1 to 2 tenths of ice accretion, and also in parts of southern Pennsylvania, southwest Pennsylvania, in the mountains, down into West Virginia. There's even a 3100th print there. And if we look at total new snow, I don't draw maps for a coating to an inch. Bobby Livingsworth was asking me if I was going to do a map, and it's something to do a map for. I mean, I suppose that there could be a coating to an inch with this before it changes over to rain and changes over to maybe sleet and freezing rain and then to rain. And I think along the coast, it's probably going to happen fairly quickly, especially once the wind turns to the east. But you can see most of the snow amounts here are really not screaming big numbers. Even up in northern New England, it's mostly ones and twos with some odd 3 and 4 inch amounts being indicated here and there. And just to go back to your temperature argument on the digital forecast, so this is Thursday. This is where, this is why you hate the spring. Uh, or if you don't hate the spring, you should in the Northeast, because Thursday highs, and they've backed off as we've gotten closer. So now all we have is 40s, although upper 40s from New York City and points north and east. Southern New Jersey and southern Pennsylvania points southward. That's where you start seeing 60s. And then, of course, you get down into southern Maryland and Virginia, you see 70s. And then Friday, now here's the problem for Friday: east winds, east and northeast winds across New England to New York City, northern New Jersey, 40s to near 50 for highs. Southern New Jersey, mid 60s. Southern Pennsylvania, upper 60s and low 70s, and 70s in Maryland, and 80s in Virginia. And
Well,
as far as the weekend goes, now here's Saturday. The wind turns more south, and that's still problematic. It's mostly low and mid 50s from northern New Jersey, north and east. Mid to upper 60s, southern New Jersey, west and south, and 70s and 80s in Virginia. And then Sunday, Ah, Joe, here's Sunday. Okay, the wind is more southwest on Sunday, so some 70s in the southern half of New Jersey. Actually, draw a line from say just north of Trenton to Sandy Hook south, and from the north
So
and east though, mid and upper 60s on the
look at that, and
digital
that's like
forecast.
right on the Westchester Putnam border. I don't know what station that is, but 68 degrees. I'll
Yes.
believe it when I see it or feel it.
Yeah, well, I know you have to be skeptical this time of year because especially because models when we're dealing with these warm fronts they love to bring the warm air up, or at least the models try to bring they overwarm. They don't when it's a bright sunny day and you have a sort of nondescript type of air mass, it underdoes the temperatures in the spring, and that's when you get these busts of 5, 6, or 7 degrees sometimes, where the models are just at least 5 to 7 degrees too low. Well, when you're dealing with warm fronts ahead of it, sometimes they like to bring the warm front through, and then in reality comes along and it never makes it. And here's tomorrow's situation, with these east southeast isobars. The high is out well east of Cape Cod, and you've got this area of precip with a warm front trying to push northward, and it never really quite makes it. So then that area pulls out, but you got another low that's setting up here in Illinois with another warm front uh, for uh, Wednesday night and Thursday. And I mean, I could kind of, if I were to draw the warm front, I probably would draw it, somewhere right across central New Jersey, trying to move northward because there's a big cold high up in northeastern Canada that's sort of pressing down. And
Right, and there's still a lot of snow cover over a good part of New England and upstate New York. And so, cold air damming, you see the especially the models back 20, 25, 30 years ago, which really didn't take that into account. You see it, they push a warm front flying through the Northeast, and then you see like on television, the weathercasters, oh, but don't worry, in a few days it's going to get into the 60s and it's going to be warm. And what happens? We finally get there and it stays in the 40s because the warm front kind of loops down and around and then the weathercaster says, well, I know we called for 60s, but looks, Atlantic City was 68 today. So yeah, I know it was
yeah, well,
cloudy and only 40.
I don't
It
live
was
in
only 40 here.
right.
That's
Well,
I've seen that happen over and over, and I'm sure you too have seen
oh
it
yeah,
happen over and over again. And that's why in the springtime, you really, yeah,
it's a
that's why I
lot of
say I'll
gloom
see
and
what I
doom.
believe in.
Well, here's this thing pulls out Tuesday night. I mean, there's a brief period of improvement. Maybe the sun might peek through for a little bit on Wednesday, but then we've got the next warm front setting up for Thursday. And again, it's going to be a struggle to get it through. In fact, if I look at the GFS, you see there's a little tiny low that forms on the warm front just east of coastal New Jersey. And then that goes out. And it also has some snow on the northern end up in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. And then that goes out. And you're left with a high that's sitting over Nova Scotia with the easterly isobars going into the weekend. I mean, I don't know how much sun we're going to get. And certainly with a look like this, I don't even know if you're going to get a south wind. Might be more like an east wind. But here comes another cold front for Sunday. The upside of the pattern that we've gotten into now is the fact that we are getting these weather systems that are coming through at a fairly rapid pace, one after another. So each one is going to produce no one system is going to produce a lot of rain, but a lot of precip. But each one is going to produce something, and when you add it up, uh, we could probably get an inch to an inch and a quarter between now and Sunday until the last one goes by. Meanwhile, all the winter action, such as it is, because there's no real Arctic air around, is all out in the Rockies and in the West. And you can see there's some kind of low here on Friday that runs up into Minnesota and then goes up into Canada. Longer term, I mentioned this last night, and I'll just briefly mention it again. As of today, Joe, we have a split polar vortex. Okay, the polar vortex has split into two. It did so late this afternoon. One center goes to Siberia, another one drops into North America over Hudson Bay. You see it there. And It's going to stay split for a while. Eventually, the vortex that's up in Siberia is the one that's going to take over in a week or so. But the splitting of the vortex probably means, there's something's going to change in the next 10 days or so. After about 10 days, so figure around mid-month. So if you're looking or hoping for one more snow event, maybe it happens in the second half. But I mentioned yesterday, and I'll say it again, it may be splitting, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to couple with what's going on in the lower atmosphere. So we're going to be paying attention to this and see what plays out. So I mean, there's still a chance that, with this polar vortex split, that maybe there's another chance for one more snow event, but uh, it's all a dice roll at this point.
It is.
And I think most people have had enough. So if we don't have another snowfall, I don't think it's going to disappoint. I don't think it's going to make it's going to make the unhappy happy. Let's put it that way.
Well, I know on his Facebook page, our friend Bill Goodman from the National Weather Service mentioned that Dr. Judah Cohen, is talking about, a splitting of the polar vortex, and going into a discussion. His latest blog discusses the possibility of another round of cold and possibly snowy weather. But according to Dr. Cohen, if that happens, it would not expect to happen until late in March, or maybe the beginning of April.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm just quickly looking at some of the MJO products, and they're all still decidedly mixed. Although we do have the European extended monthly, which has us going into phase 8 during the second phase 8 on the MJO, which is usually one of the colder phases. So anyway, that's for down the road. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. You have Briller Jeopardy?
Yes, I do.
Well, have at it, will you?
Well, I'll get to it as soon as I possibly can here. Switch now and go here. And here is Scott Briller and Mr. Briller's uh, Briller Jeopardy questions tonight. New category on Briller Jeopardy: average snowfall in the month of March. Average snowfall for the month of March. And he provides us with, of course, five uh, cities. And the first one of these, Joe, is Baltimore. Average snowfall in Baltimore for the month of March.
I'm going to say 3.
Where's the bell? Didn't even give anybody on the chat board a chance. 3 is correct. 3 for Baltimore.
Okay.
Next city is Boston.
I'm going to say for Boston, hmm, 7.
Well, S0 Mac had 7. And Michael McGuire, 1881, got it correct. 9.
9.
9. Bobby Livingsworth, you were way off with 23. They may have had 23 in March, the year that they got over 100 inches in Boston, but the average for March is 9. Buffalo.
I see this starts to get tricky now. You know, 11.
Good guess. Not quite high enough, however.
Okay. I see some 13s and 14s.
Christopedia said 13. That's snake country. And 14, I'm looking for 14. Yeah, Harold Olson. Harold Olson, you got it with
And
14.
and Mr. Chuck, Mr.
Indeed.
Cardillo got it too.
Yes. And there you go. How about the Windy City, Chicago? Average snowfall in March.
That's tough in the Midwest because it's like I'll say I'll say 6.
And there you go.
Oh, I got two of them tonight.
That's right. So did Patrick Dorsey. He had six. Very good. Last one, the Queen City, Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
There
Uh,
isn't another. There isn't another bed and breakfast place.
clean
Clear
to Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Uh, I'll give them. I'll say. I'll say three.
Oh my God, Joe is hot tonight.
I got three
Look
out
at
of
this.
five.
Look at that. 3 inches in Cincinnati. Bonus question, bonus place tonight. Average snowfall in March for Asheville, North Carolina.
Asheville, North Carolina.
Yes.
You know, there's the airport, and then there's the mountains there, which always get more. I'm going to say for Asheville, I'm going to say two.
Oh my God. Joe,
Oh, four
play
out
the,
of six.
play the lottery tonight, man.
I should. I
Patrick
really
Darcy also
should.
had two.
Oh God, wow.
Isn't that amazing? An
Well,
amazing
yay, I'm
story.
proud of myself.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of tired tonight. It's been a busy day in the house, just trying to clean things up. And I started a little yard work today, um, which was nice. My hydrangeas are already starting to put leaves out, so I'm very excited. 'Cause I planted a whole bunch of them last year, so I'm hoping, they all come back big time this year. So we'll see what happens.
Well, if there's anything that Renata planted, I can't see them because we still have a fair amount of snow cover. It's going to take a while. I haven't seen my lawn, my front lawn, in about 9 weeks. So
Wow.
it's gonna take a little time.
Yeah.
However,
You,
if you're not doing anything tomorrow at 5 a.m., aside from trying to see the beginning of the lunar eclipse, and if you happen to have Fox Weather on your cable or dish site, if you can tune into Fox Weather at 5 a.m. tomorrow, you're going to see yours truly, who will be interviewed about the lunar eclipse that will already be in progress at that time. So,
let's leave the show with one last question from Cecilia Hernandez, and she wants to know if the moon revolves around the Earth every 30 days, why isn't it in the shadow monthly and an eclipse every 30 days?
because, well, first of all, it's 29 point
28.
20, actually, it's 27, but when you factor in the Earth revolving around the sun, the lunar phases recur every 29 and a half days. Why is it? Because the orbit of the moon relative to the plane of the orbit of the Earth is tipped by about 5.5 degrees. So, most cases, because of the fact that it's at that angle, the moon, in most cases, when it's full, will either pass above the shadow of the Earth or below the shadow of the Earth. You have to get into that special case where the moon is crossing what we call the node, which is the ecliptic or plane of the Earth's revolution around the sun. When it gets into that position, then you have that alignment of sun, moon, and Earth, allowing for an eclipse to take place. That's going to happen with this particular setup tonight, with the full moon tonight. It'll go right through the shadow. But again, more often than not, because the moon's orbit is tipped slightly relative to the plane of the orbit of the Earth, it usually goes above or below the shadow, and we don't get a lunar eclipse. But we'll get one tonight. If you can see it tomorrow morning, well, it's interesting. It's not something awe-inspiring, but it's something that's interesting and something that's pretty, because the moon again will turn a reddish coloration, and you might want to check it out if it's clear.
All right. Okay, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow at 7:35. So have a good night and traveling tomorrow while everything's getting glazed up to some extent. Do so carefully. And we'll see you tomorrow night.
Good night, folks.
Good night.